So, welcome to the New Resistance, the first show, the first episode of, I hope, many shows. And I'm here with my friend. You can introduce yourself.
Okay. Hello. My name's Chet. I'm an internet troublemaker of sorts, I guess. I don't know. No, I generally try to keep things pretty calm, but I'm a student of anthropology. I recently finished up my bachelor's of science in anthropology, and I try to understand economics and technology and other social issues. I'm interested in different futurist ideas and a host of other things, and I kind of mash it all into a worldview, and that's pretty much it.
Great. And where are you from specifically?
I am from in the United States, of course, from Missouri.
USA.
USA, number one. France, you're like at least number 5.
Yeah.
No, that stuff's terrible. I've lived in mostly in Missouri. I spent some time in Alaska, and I've traveled across the North American continent. Unfortunately, I've never been off of it, and I would love to come to Europe at some point and see France and see some of the other excellent places over there that I've only enjoyed in video and pictures. But yeah, so I'm pretty much stuck here right in the middle of the United States. So it's an interesting place to be. It's not always my favorite, but it's not always all that bad either. It's
not that kind of places when you find huge signs like repent.
Yeah.
Repent. God is God rules.
You can take any highway out of town, and you're likely going to find one of those at least, if not multiple.
Yeah, no, I remember I was touring in 2012. I started in Massachusetts, and then we arrived until the kind of the middle of North America, and Kansas City or something like that was really on our way to arrive there. Was impressive. See these huge signs that of course cost a lot of money. Telling you that you should repent because God is watching.
Because the loving God is going to set you on fire for all of time.
Yes, but He love you. He love you.
And I have a coworker that I've been every now and then the subject comes up, and I tell him, I'm like, if God is a loving God, probably not going to burn you for all eternity. that doesn't compute.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but anyway. Well, people think here in France people are very progressive, but recently, last year there was a huge debate because of they want to approve that gay people could marry. Could get married, and was huge manifestation of people against it.
Wow.
Because I say the same. But we're like, what? Because
I'm surprised.
You think France is very progressive and whatever, but no, it's like there's still a lot of people that are very conservative, very traditional, and so we have the same stuff here. So you're not alone. So I don't know. It will be nice to talk today about a subject that I think is very important for both of us and for a lot of people. Is the racing trend, racing, if you can call, movement of anarcho-capitalism. Can you just, because of course you talk better English than me, can you explain to the people what this is about? You know, what they think are fighting for.
I don't know if I have a good like summary just off the top of my head, but basically, I think it was around the 50s or the 60s. Murray Rothbard, after opposing the label anarchist and saying that it clearly doesn't apply to him, he makes this 180 and says, actually, the only true anarchism is anarcho-capitalism, which is pretty much nonsense because, to my knowledge, basically every anarchist prior to that identified as a socialist. It is a wing of the socialist movement. Even American individualists like Benjamin Tucker and Lysander Spooner, they were all socialists, at least ideologically. It's really strange, and these are people that anarcho-capitalists say, like, well, here's where we get our ideas, and it's like, well, you didn't get enough of them or something because you left something out. And so yeah, at some point, apparently Murray Rothbard declares that capitalism is the only way you can really have anarchism, and he makes it.
That's a very huge claim, I think.
Yeah, and I don't really think he ever. Here's the thing: is I don't think he ever adequately justified it, and I think people are just satisfied that he made the claim. They're like, good enough. Yeah. Yeah. Who am I to argue with? The great Rothbard, which I'm disturbed by that guy. I'm not impressed with anything that I've ever read of his.
I think it's pretty impressive because he convinced a lot of people about this crap. So you can't deny he's a good, I don't know, cult leader.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
a good speaker at least.
What was the guy's name? Jim Jones. That was a very convincing fellow.
Yes.
But yeah. So anyways, out springs this whole new school of anarchism, which is really counter to everything that's happened prior, and it didn't. I don't really see that it made a whole lot of movement up until the internet came about. I mean, you can find other people writing about it, but not the way today people perceive some sort of legitimate debate between anarcho-capitalists and all the other anarchists. Strangely, there's a lot of sympathy for anarcho-capitalism among other market anarchists, people who are maybe like mutualists or something like that, which I always try to convince anarcho-capitalists, if you want to be an anarchist, at least be a mutualist. Don't go like just changing the definition of everything just to suit your own, needs. But yeah, so to me, there is no legitimate debate there. I've spent a lot of time arguing with anarcho-capitalists online, but mostly for either entertainment or just to learn more about what they think about the world. But I've never really perceived it as some sort of legitimate school of anarchism. I don't see any sort of like revolutionary potential there. I agree with Chomsky's very like scathing assessments of that sort of ideology, that it would lead to something likely far worse than what we have today, which is, not so great. And I think fundamentally their big charge is always that everyone else misunderstands economics except for them. And I think that's actually a bit of a projection, that it's really them that they are just not comprehending what they're talking about.
No, but there's a very good way to, end a debate. It's like you really don't know what you're talking about, so I can't talk with you.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been accused of making that same maneuver before, and sometimes I feel like it's legitimate, but sometimes it really is just a dismissal of
course it is.
Yeah.
And it's not like it happened one time or two times. It's just in general, the mechanism that they use when you debate with them is you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know about economics. When you learn about economics, we can talk again.
Yeah, and of course, like I often reference the work of David Graeber, who clearly understands something about economics. He's a economic anthropologist. He's currently, I believe, he has a position at the London School of Economics. I forget his official title, but yeah, written serious works on economics. Wrote Debt, history of the last 5,000 years of economics, essentially. And whenever I pull from his work, or I pull from the work of other economists who are mainstream, who are well known and respected, none of that stuff seems to stick. And they fall back on these fringe guys who are basically not respected by anybody except for people within their own ideology. So it's very much this sort of self-referencing.
Yeah, it's like a circle.
It's very much a circular logic running through the whole thing.
Yeah, I think really when they are referring that you don't know economics, it's like you don't know the kind of economics they advocate. It's like it doesn't matter what happened. If you look all the history, how it developed, this kind of discipline, if you want to call it like that, of economics, they just pick, from the, I don't know, like what you're saying, from the stuff that Rothbard say or Mises say, and that's it. That's the only truth, the only thing that makes sense, and everything else is just crap.
Absolutely. It's like in my discussions, the economic calculation problem always comes up. And there's a number of things wrong with trying to use that as a criticism of what I'm talking about, but they don't. And I can try to point that out, but inevitably, if I wait another week, the same person will tell me economic calculation problem,
yes,
and ignore like the explanation that I've given as to why that's kind of a nonsensical objection. And I mean, even of course. It was Mises' criticism. Mises rejected anarchism outright. So if the ANCAPs want to use his argument, they also have to, submit to it and recognize that he would have rejected their school of thought. But ignoring that, the Mises also admitted that syndicalist type economies weren't subject to the economic calculation problem. So ignoring the fact that Mises would have rejected any sort of anarchist economy, just because his excuse is always something like, we're not angels. So therefore, we have to have like the state beating us into line. Very deep. It's solid scientific evidence-based observation, which was what Mises was into, by the way.
Sure.
But yeah, so Mises didn't reject syndicalism. Of course, the first school that I was attracted to, the first anarchist school of thought, or I guess you could call syndicalism more of a tactic, but syndicalism is something that I think is, a reasonable position. It's something that Mises didn't reject, at least not in principle. And yet you'll find these people throwing out, economic calculation problem as if it's a legitimate criticism. It goes to show that they haven't even like read the stuff themselves. Like they don't. Not only do they not know what everyone else is talking about, they don't know what they're talking about either. And so, I mean, where can that conversation go? Basically, you just have someone that's just shooting words at you that they've heard and they want to regurgitate. And all you have to do is I mean, at some point you have to give up on that because it's obviously not going to go anywhere.
Yes, but of course you sometimes you find it. I think it's not good to generalize. Like every anarcho-capitalist is irrational and crazy.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. The more I don't know, you still can find people that you can argue about it, that they will gonna listen to you. Mm-hmm. And but it's unfortunately it's a minority.
Yeah, I would. Well, and I think just there's problems with the way the school of thought exists, like itself. So I think it's not even necessarily about individuals being irrational so much as the position itself is irrational. And so whenever it's represented, it generally is expressed in an irrational way. I have run into plenty of people who are voluntarists or anarcho-capitalist or whatever label, and they're reasonable. And whenever I present them with a problem, they're like, well, that's something that we'd all have to get together and work on. Or, they don't just like ignore it and say it doesn't exist. A lot of times it does go ignored, but sometimes these things are recognized as a problem. And there's some reasonable responses out there. But yeah, in my experience, which is limited but not that limited, I've spent a lot of time talking to these guys, and in my experience, that's the minority of people presenting that point of view are doing it in a reasonable manner. And it seems to me that the ones that are more reasonable end up moving away from that label and towards like I suggested earlier, mutualism, or just a generalized concept of like market anarchism, or which I think is problematic, but I can deal with that a lot better. Whatever, if your perfect vision of the future still includes market exchange and employment and things like that, then whatever, like that's, I don't care. But my whole problem with the idea is that it's really the label itself, is that it's trying to associate anarchism and capitalism, whereas anarchism is anti-capitalist. It's kind of like the nationalist anarchists. Anarchists are against nationalism, so therefore, like it's the oxymoron right in the title.
Yes.
And I'm very interested in post-scarcity ideas, and so sometimes I get that criticism as well. Well, economics is about scarcity, so if you're trying to say something contradictory there, and I can certainly explain why that's not contradictory, but I have yet to really get a satisfactory explanation for as to why something like nationalist anarchism or anarcho-capitalism or some sort of those ideas, they just seem inherently contradictory and ahistorical, and all those other things. It's just problematic, and so that's kind of why I've burnt a lot of fuel interacting with that crowd, just to try to maybe give some pushback and offer some information and maybe get a few people to adjust their position to something that's a little more reasonable.
Yes, and I think one thing is very important is these are, you can find people that they really want to improve the world, do something something better for everyone, you know. But unfortunately, they fall in this kind of way of thinking that is really kind of, I don't know, it have a lot of conflict, because in a way they say they want to improve the world, you know, they want to end the state, because the state is violence, and but at the same time they justify the more horrendous inequality, and I don't know, it's really contradictory what the kind of ideas they live inside their head, you know.
Yeah.
And I think after talk a lot with these guys, I think the main problem is kind of the root is how they perceive or what they think human beings are. It's like human beings are individuals, you know, everything is separated. There's no such thing as a forest, just individual trees. There's no things, you know, the human race is just individual humans. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of, I try to think about it and try to understand what they're coming from and everything, but it's really, I can't. It's the total opposite with every, what science has discovered the last 100 years is that, you know, I don't know. And I think that's the problem, you know, is how they view the human, what they need, what motivate humans to do stuff is I don't know. And I think that's one of the main issues why at the end you can reach a common ground, you know, because if you see science, the last discovery of science about what human beings really are, is like we act pretty much like an organism, you know. Of course we're individuals, we can have individual choices and difference, and you know, but the thing about what they are against, like, you know, the collective behavior, the everything that is social, basically, is backed up by science. And you can see examples of that in your everyday life, you know, when, I don't know, that's simple, when people get depressed because they need the human contact, they need a relationship, we need to talk with each other, to relate with each other. And I don't know, this kind of vision that they have, that everything is separated, everything is individual, and is I don't know, disturbing.
It is, and you mentioned inequality earlier, and it's very rare that I find an ANCAP who is even slightly concerned about inequality. Most of them, straightforward, at least in my experience, most of them just say, who cares? Like, that's not what we're about. We're not about treating people equal, except for in a sort of negative rights sense. But they're just interested in, people receiving whatever it is that they earn, which I think is a problematic concept, but, you know, they certainly see it as legitimate. but you can demonstrate, we're both aware of Richard Wilkinson's research that shows that societies with greater inequalities, they have a number of social ills that are more strongly expressed than societies with greater equality, economic equality, and so but you can present them with that information and they're not interested.
Yes.
And basically that disinterest is guaranteeing that such a society would would end up very unhealthy, and they would still not care. Even though their own well-being is interdependent with social well-being and social health, they're so. I mean, in that apathy, there's actually a lack of self-interest. Of course, self-interest being like this sort of core mantra, sort of Randian drive that they all, I'm generalizing again, but that many ANCAPs value heavily, the fact that I should be able to pursue my own self-interest. And, if we're talking about like Smith's invisible hand or something like that, then
Sure.
other people will just naturally benefit off my self-interest. And you can already demonstrate there that's not even full self-interest. Like if you were actually self-interested, you would be very concerned about inequality. You would be very concerned about social health. You would, in a way, I could argue that I'm far more self-interested than they are.
Yes.
But I also don't value the concept of self-interest nearly as strongly, and I think that's just kind of their own ideological thing. I think a lot of that does go back to Rand. I mentioned her earlier, but
Ayn
even before
Rand.
then, yes, Ayn Rand.
Yes, she's a very nice lady.
She's very altruistic.
Yeah. No, I think what you were saying is kind of disturbing when you present some kind of scientific evidence and they completely disregarded, like, I don't know, is statist propaganda or socialist propaganda or anything that. But the thing is that, of course, you can question, some kind of information. Is not a bad thing. But at one point, you have to stop and maybe just ask yourself, maybe I'm not 100% right.
Maybe.
But,
maybe I'm not always perfect.
Yes, but the thing is, I think it's very well structured. The kind of this kind of ideology of anarcho-capitalism, because have an answer for everything. Like have a solution for everything. So every time you present some stuff like, it doesn't matter, the market will solve that. And I don't know about the inequality issue. I can see that from an empirical experience, because I'm from South America. It's not a third world country, but it's not like France. It's a country called Chile. Have a kind of a very interesting history. And the thing is that I will not gonna talk about the history of Chile because it's very complex and long. But
how do you feel about Milton Friedman?
Yeah, I love that guy. Yeah. Well, the thing is that I lived there for more than 30 years, and I have some friends from very lower class or higher class, and you can see in the country like a kind of constant struggle between the rich and the poor, because the inequality is so big. Most of the good education is privatized. Basically, most of the stuff, the good stuff, are private. So that generates a kind of huge gap between the rich and poor, and I don't know, people just are used to it, But there is, a little content resentment. So, for example, when it could happen, anything like, for example, a football match, and the team of Chile lose, the people were gonna go to the square and destroy some business and create chaos, because it's there, It's not visible all the time, but you just need a spark, and
it's under the yeah.
And that's why also a couple of years ago, and still now, they're trying to improve the education so they could be more available to, poor people, and to a little, decrease this gap. But is really a constant struggle that they have to do to create some change. And so, in that kind of context, if you are in a good neighborhood, you're okay. Everything is. They even have a private security, But if you are in a bad neighborhood, sometimes you can be pretty scared,
Wait. Are you telling me that if security is privatized, poor people won't be able to afford it? What?
Shocking news, but yeah.
Why don't they just work harder?
Yeah, they work.
They need to get jobs.
Yes. That's what I tell them. No, but it's really weird. So if you go to the center of the city in the night, something could happen to you, that you will get robbed or stuff like that, and and it's because this kind of inequality, you can see that poor people are very bad educated, so you can, sometimes you can reason with someone that is asking you money, give me your money, stuff like that, and you can reason. And well, since 2 years, I'm living here in France, and one thing that, of course, the kind of the social structure is kind of different. There are more public health, public access to education and stuff like that, because it's kind of part of the history of France. But I could see empirically that when you have less inequality, you can be more. It's a more healthy society. You can walk in the street, and even the people that ask you for money, they say, good morning. Excuse me for disturbing you. I just want to see if you have some money that to eat. Really? I was like, what?
How are you not going to give that guy money?
Yes, and you can say no. I say sorry, no. I say, oh, no problem. Have a good day. It's like, what the fuck is this? In my country, it's like, hey, you have some money? And it's like, and it's completely changed. And you see how that kind of theory of statistic that I forgot the name of the guy.
Richard Wilkinson, probably.
Yeah, Wilkinson.
Yeah.
It's true. It says I experienced firsthand, and yeah, and also you can see it in for example, in this in Europe, but more in days like, for example, in Hungary. Recently I was in Budapest, and yeah, it's awful. You see, people living in the street. They have so much people living in the street that that benches that are for the poor people use it for sleeping the night in the park. The benches, they reduce the size to the half so they can lay down.
I've seen before they'll put armrests in the middle of the bench, so you can't actually lay down on it. You have to sit.
Yes. That sounds like a lot like an ANCAP solution for for homeless people.
Well, like you said, the market will solve the problem. Someone will just start selling, benches that you can't lay down on.
Or spikes.
Spikes. Oh God, that was ridiculous. I'm so glad that so many people fought against that. Yes. Because it really made the people who thought of that stuff look bad, and as they should, because that's anti-human.
Sure.
Ridiculous.
And the more disturbing claim that I have listened from Anarcho-Capitalism guy is that poor people are poor because they are lazy, or because they want to be poor, because they were gonna receive social aid and really
it's the state. it's always the state.
I have some experience, with the poor people here, or poor people in my country, and you can see that they are not enjoying their life that much. They will happily change their life in any day, have a chance to find a better job or anything that could create some change, but it's like they are in a constant, cycle of poverty. When you're born in a poor neighborhood, you don't have access to education. All your environment is surrounded by people that tell you that maybe you don't have to go to school. You just go and sell drugs with me or stuff like that. So it's like of course there are people that have this, I don't know how to describe it, the strength or the determination to really, really work very, 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 very hard until death, and maybe try to overcome that that kind of position. But most of the people don't have it, and they end very much depressed. With you can see in my country and here too, that poor people usually they start to drink a lot. They become alcoholics. They start to be very depressed, because imagine if you are in a situation like this that you can't get out. Is horrible. And at the same time, you have the huge advertising that say, buy this. If not, you will not gonna have girls. If not, you will not gonna be popular. If not, your life will gonna be completed. So you need this. You need to buy this. And the people don't have any money. So imagine this constant psychological message in their head to buy stuff, and they can is really drive people crazy.
Well, we should see that sort of bombardment of advertising as abuse. Of course, it's perfectly accepted, at least in a lot of places. I seem to remember reading an article a few years back about somewhere, maybe you can help me, but I thought it was somewhere in South America where advertising was banned for the whole city.
Yes.
And I thought that was incredible. I never thought I would ever see anything like that, because corporations have such influence.
Yeah, of course.
But that's really incredible. Also, you were talking about how cycles of poverty and the way it inhibits people from improving their own life and contributing more to society. There's a book, and I forget the author's name, but it's called Scarcity: Why Having So Little Means So Much, and he talks about just what poverty does to people, how it literally affects your ability to even make good decisions because you're just under such a great influence of stress. And I believe I'm quoting stuff from memory, so that's never a good thing. One reason why I prefer text conversations is because I can double check everything as I'm typing it.
But we can after we can add in the description your source.
We'll just bleep out the misinformation I'm about to regurgitate and insert the correct stuff.
It's okay.
But I believe it was something like even 13% of your IQ can be dropped just from poverty. Yeah, and even within the same people, I remember part of his study was comparing people at one point of the year when they had lots of money coming in from like harvests or something like that. And they're more rational. They're more able to run their lives responsibly versus another time of the year when they've run out of resources and things are getting more scarce. And that's one reason why I like to focus on scarcity in particular as a problem that we can unite around overcoming. Because it's universal. It affects everyone. Even if I don't think it could really be said that anybody doesn't experience scarcity. I think we all do in some way or another. But let's say even if you don't feel like you are affected by scarcity in a dramatic way, you have a lot of access to the good life or whatever. Even then, you're not safe or secure if you have people who are suffering from scarcity around you, because you back someone into a corner and they'll fight back. They'll take your stuff, they'll do whatever it takes. They'll because that's who we are as biological beings.
Every species in this planet are designed to survive. That's our main our main, well,
that's evolution.
Yes, we will gonna do anything that we can to survive. That's the essence. Of course, humans are kind of different because they can have multiple different desires and stuff, but the more basic stuff is survive. So of course, if you put a person in a place when they can they can have the means to survive, they were gonna do anything that they can to do it, and that's for me so obvious, the relation between not access to resources or inequality to crime,
Absolutely.
because it's pretty it's human nature is what people do, and I don't know. That's the thing that it shocked me also about the anarcho-capitalist solutions to this kind of problem. Is just have more security, bigger fences, guns. It's like they deal with the consequence of a problem, but not with the root.
Not the root issue.
What is this come from? And it's the same what I was telling before. It's like they have a misconception what human beings are. It's like for me. Well, you are the expert here, but
that's scary.
I I think human have potential for do good things or bad things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You have Gandhi, you have Hitler, you have Charles Manson, you have Martin Luther King, you know, and it's kind of scary when they assume that kind of the people are intrinsically selfish and almost evil, you know. It's like we need to create a system to control, you know, to control the people. That is, for them, is so important. The private ownership, you know, to keep the lines very, you know, clear in the sand, and you know, you will not gonna trespass this line because it's my property, and you know, it's because they came from kind of a worldview when kind of it's natural people to, you know, behave and rob and kill, and I don't know, I don't agree at all with that, and science science don't agree either, you know, because it depends how, to what environment you're exposed, that it determines how you will behave. It's not 100% deterministic, but it will influence in some way. So just deny that is like deny science, and it's like, you know, go back to the dark ages, you know.
Yeah. One reason why, and this kind of occurred to me while you were talking about all this division and sort of everyone wants to be like their little sort of everyone wants to have their little like pseudo kingdom, or their own their own command over. Basically, they want to be little states, which. But you rarely. I mean, it's not completely unheard of, but you rarely hear the ANCAPs talking about anything about solidarity or mutual aid, or I mean, occasionally you hear mentions of charity. Once you've pointed out enough problems with the economic model, they'll be like, yeah, well, the rich people will be happy to just hand it over to the poor voluntarily, and if they don't want to do that, then it's the poor's fault for not working hard enough, and they should die off, or you know what.
That was the point I was telling you, that two contradictory ideas is like, for one side, like they say, no, but we really care about the poor, you know, we want the poor to be better, and that's, you have to end any kind of welfare, you know, welfare is not good for the poor, because and when you ask, you know, what's your solution, is charity. You know, they say no, but charity is a solution to replace welfare. And then at the same time, some hours later in another conversation, they say like the stuff that you say, you know, about the inequality. Is like, who fucking cares?
Like, I really trust you to donate to the poor people, like, so that they're okay.
Okay, so that's very, you know, it's like cognitive dissonance stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I think we're good for a first episode so far. I think it will be nice. We can, you know, talk about this again in the future. But I think it's a good start. It's a good start. So I want to thank everyone that is watching this this epic piece of philosophy, and I hope you can keep watching this. We will gonna still making some shows and talking about different issues that two people are concerned, or we are concerned. And thank you, Chet.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I'll see you next time, because we are the new resistance.
Yeah.